I think it's a technology innovation that is meant to disrupt the financial system. Right now, people do see it as a scam. They see it as a Ponzi scheme. They see it as a pyramid scheme when it isn't, right? Because you can't have a decentralized Ponzi scheme. The US dollar price really has no value. It doesn't really show you anything. So there are ways for you to kind of ruin your privacy, I guess. But then there are also ways to keep yourself very private.
Hi, Rajat. Thanks for joining me on my show. So a lot of people have questions about Bitcoin because I think a lot of people actually know Bitcoin because it's on the news and they know it's a technology innovation. So everyone knows it's a new technology out there. But a lot of people doesn't see in the lens of a finance. So they think it as a technological innovation, but they don't believe it's a real financial asset. So you being a finance guy, having worked in finance for more than 10 years. So what do you think Bitcoin is? Is it a technology innovation or a financial asset?
I think it's a technology innovation that is meant to disrupt the financial system, right? So right now it's considered technology because most people don't understand how it works, and technology turns into just a regular thing over time as more people understand it, right? At some point, for example, microwaves were a technology, right? TVs were a technology.
Yep.
Everything is a technology at some point because at that point it's a disruption, right? It changes how things work. It changes the world. So right now, Bitcoin is considered a technology because, like I said, most people don't understand it. But I think at some point, right now, there are a lot of people who do understand it and they've figured it out. But at some point, I think that people won't look at it as technology anymore. I think they'll just look at it as money. Do you get what I'm saying? Like at some point, people will use it on a day-to-day basis. Financial system will be based on, that's what I think at least. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that at some point, our financial system will be based on Bitcoin. And at that point, people won't see it as technology. They'll see it as money.
But do you think like Bitcoin will only be a financial asset, or will it also have other roles to play? I mean, because if I talk to my circle, they say, yeah, it's a blockchain. I know what a blockchain is. Blockchain is a good technology. So many companies are using it. So, but they don't really see it as a financial asset. They see some people using that technology to rip off people.
Yeah,
So,
see, I feel like that comes with people not quite understanding what it is, right? When people understand what it is, they see that it's not a ripoff, right? Because you don't nobody can force you to use Bitcoin, right? Nobody can force you into it. But you can force yourself to you can't force this. You can use it. You can start using it at some point, and you get to opt in, right? But nobody can force you. I think the way that people look at it right now is because they don't understand it, and there's a very small group of people trying to talk to them about it. They think that that small group of people is like getting paid. For example, have you gotten comments where people say, "Oh, who's paying you to do this? Who's giving you money?" I get that all the time, right? It's because people don't get it. People don't understand it, and that's perfectly fine. I feel like that's how things are. You have to be able to accept that, right? Right now, people do see it as a scam. They see it as a Ponzi scheme. They see it as a pyramid scheme when it isn't, right? Because you can't have a decentralized Ponzi scheme. It's not possible. A Ponzi scheme requires insiders who are going to take profit out of it. A Ponzi scheme requires that there's a group of people that doesn't benefit. With Bitcoin, that's not the case, right? With Bitcoin, everybody can eventually benefit because it's a positive sum game. Even if people, let's say, so something that a lot of people say is the people who got in early are lucky because they got in cheaper. But you have to go through the volatility. Like if somebody bought it at 1 cent and now it's worth $100,000, it's not like they just bought it at 1 cent and it went straight up to $100,000. It went from 1 cent to $1, then it went to $30, and it went back to $1. How many people probably beat themselves up thinking that, oh, I should have sold it at $30? How many people actually sold it at that $30 or at that $1 point, and then they never got back in, right? So the way that I see it, people are scared of the volatility. They're scared of potentially losing money. They're scared of the price being very like fluctuating too much, falling, going up, falling, going up. They're very scared of that, so they want to avoid it. And because in the past, Bitcoin's price has crashed. Like let's say, for example, in 2022, Bitcoin went from something like 70,000 at the end of 2021 till the end of 2022. Bitcoin went from like 71 or 70,000, 69,000 all the way back down to 16,000, 15,700, right?
Right.
So what they see, they don't see the fact that it went from 0 to 15,000. They see that it went from 70,000 to 15,000. That's all they see, and that's all they can talk about, right? But
Right.
with every investment, you have to
Mm-hmm.
have. Well, I wouldn't even consider Bitcoin to be an investment right now. Maybe it's considered an investment because
Mm-hmm.
it's a technology, and most people don't quite understand it. But
Mm-hmm.
with every investment, with every opportunity that you have to make money, you have to have the right time horizon. If you don't have
Right.
the right time horizon, then you're always going to lose. For example, with Bitcoin, there are people who want to make quick money, so they put their rent money into Bitcoin, and then they
Mm-hmm.
expect it to double so they can pay for 2 months of rent, right? That's the
Right.
stupidest thing you can do, right? But if you buy and you hold for uh if you buy and you hold for an appropriate period of time,
Mm-hmm.
you're very likely going to be ahead in terms of dollars, yen, won, rupees, whatever currency there is.
Mm-hmm. So what do you, when you say time horizon, right? I know this is not financial advice. We're not trying to like pitch in, like sell anything here, or we're not, or this should not be considered financial advice. But what do you think should be the time horizon here? Because like people look at, like when they say, usually people look at stocks, like they look at
Yeah,
index funds, and some people have like a time horizon. So for
yeah.
Bitcoin, what is the time horizon that you think is a safe one?
Can I share my screen here? I think that this is probably the best way to show it. Let me
Yep,
try sharing
sure.
my screen. There should be okay, perfect. Okay, so I like this chart because this is the 4-year moving average price of Bitcoin. Really great question, by the way. What's the appropriate time horizon? I think the appropriate time horizon for the majority of people would be 4 years. And the reason for that is that what you see on this chart is you see the day-to-day price, the
Mm.
dots there, the colorful dots. Those are the day-to-day price, right? And then
Yeah.
you see the line at the bottom there. That's the 4-year moving average price. So what that means is that that's the price of Bitcoin if you calculate whatever the last 1,458 days of the price was. So that's the average price over the last 1,458 days. Over time, the 4-year moving average just goes up. You can see the line,
Mm-hmm.
it only goes up, right? So the way that I see it, the day-to-day movement is a distraction, right? So these prices on the day-to-day basis, the ones where it's the dots, that's a distraction, right? So what I like to do is remove the distraction and just look at the 4-year moving average, right? So this is the 4-year moving average price. This is the true price of Bitcoin. So what I would say in general
Mm-hmm.
is if you're planning to buy Bitcoin, don't buy for less than 4 years. If you plan to buy for less than 4 years, you're probably going to lose money.
Okay. Okay. I think that's really important, because like when people jump onto an asset, most
Yeah.
people who jump immediately are looking for quick wins, right?
Yes.
And people who want to really study and invest, they aren't trying to, they won't invest by just by looking at the, or they just won't buy just by looking at the news, right? I mean, you've seen the news, like Bitcoin hit all-time high, or there is a negative news about it. So I think that's really important, that what you just said. Mm-hmm.
The way that I see it, what I try to tell my audience, so I have a YouTube channel as well. What I try to tell my audience is buy Bitcoin and expect to feel stupid for the next 4 years. Right? The reason why I say that is because let's say, for example, there are people who bought at 125,000, right? And now it's at 112,000
Right.
US dollars. So even in the short term, you might feel stupid for the short term, like for that little short period of time. But who knows? Maybe the next bear market,
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin goes to 60, 70, $80,000, right? So you
Right.
bought at 125,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 years from now, maybe it's at 100K, right? It goes all the way up to like, let's say 200K at the end of this bull market, and then it drops to 100K, right? So the way that I see it,
Mm-hmm.
don't buy Bitcoin unless you have a 4-year time horizon, because if you have less than 4 years, you're probably not going to be very happy with your decision. But if you can hold for more than 4 years, very, very likely that you're going to be happy.
Right. So if someone knows about this, right, that it's going to be a 4 years, so people, what they look is like, should I buy now? Like, I know it's 4 years. Should I wait for this price to crash back to, like, they're expecting like 60K? Should I wait for that and then buy it and hold it for 4 years, or they should just buy every month a certain amount?
So the way that I see it, you should be buying consistently no matter what, right? I don't the way well, like I said before, with that 4-year moving average price, the day-to-day price is a distraction, right? All you want is more nominal Bitcoin over time, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you can get to, let's say, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, it doesn't matter what price you paid for it. At some point, whatever Bitcoin you have is going to be worth more than what you paid for it, right? Because no matter what happens, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Nobody can pay the people who produce this Bitcoin, the miners, to increase the supply past 21 million. Nobody can make it so that there's going to be fake Bitcoin in the system. There's only one Bitcoin. There's only 21 million of that network, of the currency on that network, right? Nobody can change that. Nobody can stop that from happening. And one of the good things here is that you can buy fractions, right? You can buy $100, $10, $50, whatever you want. It doesn't matter how much you buy. So what I would say is, like you said there, just buy over time, dollar cost average, buy monthly, buy weekly, buy daily, whatever you can. The way that I see it though,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even have to set up recurring buys. Just buy Bitcoin whenever you have extra cash. That's how I
Mm.
do it at this point, right? So in the beginning, you might want to set up that routine of buying whenever you can or setting up a recurring buy. But at some point, you're not going to need to do that, right? At some point, you're just going to want to buy Bitcoin because you know what it is, right? You know
Right.
it's valuable. You know it's going up in price. So no matter what the price is for me, for example, I bought Bitcoin at 124,700. I bought it at the very top. I bought
Mm-hmm.
some, right? But I
Yes.
also bought some Bitcoin at like 16,000 in 2022,
Mm.
right? But then I also bought some Bitcoin remember in March 2024, when after the ETFs,
Right.
we had that peak at like 71K and then it dropped to 51K. I bought some at 71K back then. And people probably thought I was stupid for doing it. But now, how many people wouldn't want Bitcoin for 71K?
Yeah.
Right. So no matter what the price is, I think regardless of what happens, you're fine to buy. The price is a distraction. The US dollar price really has no value. It doesn't really show you anything. The only thing that it shows you is that more and more people are putting their value into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is running out at certain prices. So one thing that I like to say is, like I said, Bitcoin runs out at every price. What that means is that the sellers at every price eventually run out, right? The number of people who are willing to sell, let's say at 1 cent, they're gone. The
Right.
number of people who are willing to sell at 10 cents, they're gone. The ones who are willing to sell at $1, $2, $5, $20, $50, all of those prices are gone, and we're never going to see those prices again, right? Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Satoshi Nakamoto sells all their coins and it comes back down to 10,000. Who knows? Maybe that could happen. But the likelihood of that happening is probably a lot lower than the likelihood of the price eventually going to 1 million.
Right. Got it. Okay. So there you mentioned a point, right? Because a lot of people, when they hear about Bitcoin, they have that question. Like you said, it can't be suppressed by miners. It can't be suppressed by insiders or something on those lines, right? People have a lot of questions about, I mean, anything, this is all digital, right? So they don't really understand it completely. Okay. It's Bitcoin. It's on a computer, or it's on a network rather. uh, can someone kind of control it completely? They kind of take our money, and because they don't basically understand the difference between Bitcoin and all the other coins out there. They've seen some coins crash, they've seen some coins disappear, so
Right.
they have a question like, why should I invest in Bitcoin? There are a lot of other coins I can make 300%, 400%. So what's so special about Bitcoin that I can't find in those other coins?
Yeah, no, really, really, man, these are really great questions, by the way. You're doing really well. You said this is your first podcast. Really great question. I want to share my screen again here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, One of the greatest things about Bitcoin is that you can actually track every single transaction that's ever happened. So this website is called mempool.space. This is a blockchain explorer. What it does is it shows you every single transaction, right? So what you can do here is, let's say, for example, you go all the way back to block number 1. You can see where Bitcoin was created. So every block, so what a block is, okay, so let me go back a little bit. So a blockchain is a chain of blocks, and each of those blocks contains transactions. So if you go to, let's say, this recent block here, 913,806, this block is one block in the chain of 913,000 blocks, right? So what this contains is a bunch of transactions from people who move Bitcoin from one address to another. Bitcoin is held in addresses, so you can see exactly where all of the Bitcoin is, right? You can see it's called a UTXO set, the
Mm-hmm.
unspent transaction output set. What you can see is every single address that has Bitcoin in it. And what this blockchain explorer does is it shows you every single transaction that's ever happened. This is something like looking at this website is something that really got me to, I guess, to see Bitcoin as more than just something that's digital,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the
Yep.
way that I see it with with this with this blockchain explorer, with the blockchain, with people who can run nodes, you can actually have a record of this on your own. With this, you can prove whether or not you have real Bitcoin, right? So let's say, for example, if we go back to block number 1, you can see that Bitcoin was created. So every single block has this Coinbase transaction. You can see that Bitcoin was created and it was sent to this address right here. Go into every single block. To your audience. Go into every single block. You can go into every single one of these. You can click every single one, and you can see where the Bitcoin was created and where it was sent. Right. So you can see here, Coinbase transaction, 50 Bitcoin were sent to this address. One of the greatest things here is that you can see in the beginning there was 50 Bitcoin sent to this address, and if we go to this address, we can actually see that the Bitcoin is still there. Confirmed balance 50.005 Bitcoin, right? So somebody sent more Satoshis to it for whatever reason. But you can see that the Bitcoin is still there. That's the most important thing. So with other blockchains, let's say for example, have you ever spoken to your audience about XRP?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so XRP is one of those things where this is actually it's really funny to me that people still talk about XRP. XRP is one of those people say that XRP is going to be global money, but XRP has a huge flaw. And that flaw is, I'm going to go to another website. That flaw is that the ledger, that record of transactions for XRP, the first week of transactions is missing. So the transactions aren't there. How do you know that? How do you know who received that Bitcoin or that XRP? How do you know who received it in the first place, right? You have no idea if it's real. You have no idea if it even exists. You have no idea if it's there. So with XRP, because it's not public, because not everybody can run a node, this is what happens, right? So you can see here, due to a mishap early in XRP's ledger history, ledgers number 1 through 32,569 were lost.
So which
Right?
means there is either a technology flaw there, or there was
Yes.
a malicious intent there,
Yes.
which both either of one is that it's inferior to Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. So one of the problems with XRP is that all of the supply is it was already created. It was pre-mined. So what pre-mining means is that it was created out of thin air and then it was handed to people. With Bitcoin, you actually have to put in time, energy, and effort to create more, right? So with XRP, all of the XRP was created up front and it was handed over to this company called Ripple, right? So they received 80 billion coins out of the 100 billion total, right? And then Ripple's insiders, the Ripple's executive team, they received another 20 billion coins. So I think the way that I see it, I think that the ledger was maybe intentionally hidden. Something was done intentionally there to make sure that people don't see that those coins were received by these insiders, right?
R-
On the other hand, with Bitcoin, there was no pre-mine. The supply is fixed and you can see exactly when every single Bitcoin was created. So this first block here, you can see here, the block 0, this is the Genesis block. This one received 50 Bitcoin, but this Bitcoin can't be moved, it can't be transacted with. Every Bitcoin afterwards could be transacted with. So you can see here, in block number 1, this was on January 8th, 2009. In block number 1, there were 50 Bitcoin created, and these were the first 50 Bitcoin created that could actually be used, right? So anybody could join the network, anybody could mine Bitcoin, but what makes Bitcoin, and I think that's what makes Bitcoin better than other blockchains, right? So let's say, for example, with Ethereum, there's another one, Ethereum. So with Ethereum, you need to have a massive investment of 2,048 Ethereum in order to mine ETH, right? To run a validator. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, anybody can run a validator. Anybody can run, or not a validator, a node. Anybody can run a node from their home. Right now, there are something like 23,000 computers with a record of this transaction. So all of these transactions are recorded and they're kept on those computers, which to me is amazing, right? Because the way that I see it, it's almost like having a physical book, right? Because if more people, I think this is a really great example that do you know who Robert Breedlove is?
Yeah.
Robert Breedlove compared Bitcoin to the Bible, right? So what he said was, I think it was him that said it, but basically whoever said it, they said that the Bible is the book that there's the most copies of,
Yeah.
and what I got out of that is that essentially if somebody tries to manipulate the Bible, there are tons of people out there who can confirm that the manipulation is a manipulation,
Right.
right? But if you only have one copy of the Bible and then somebody tries to change it, how many people can confirm it, right? So
Yep.
exactly the same thing with XRP. Because there's only one record, they could have actually they could have lost that record of transactions. That transaction record was gone, right? Because there's only one record. There's not many people who are confirming that record. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, let's say, for example, if one person's computer crashes
Mm-hmm.
and the entire blockchain gets erased, it's not like that's the only copy. There are multiple copies, and we can use all of those copies of the blockchain to reconcile what the total values should be, who should be holding Bitcoin, where the Bitcoin came from. We can confirm whether or not Bitcoin is real. So, for example, if you go all the way to the most recent block, if you
Mm-hmm.
go to, let's say, for example, if you go to this one here, I'm not actually going to go through it, but essentially you can actually go through and you can see every single transaction that happened all the way back to the Coinbase. Right.
Okay.
So the Coinbase transaction, like I said, the Coinbase transaction is the transaction where more Bitcoin is created and added to the economy. And there's a specific rate at which Bitcoin is being added to the economy. Right now, there's 3.125 Bitcoin being created every 10 minutes. In the beginning, it was 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. So this Coinbase, the newly generated coins, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to continue to be created until around 2140. So if you can mine Bitcoin, you
Mm-hmm.
can potentially take part in this production of new coins and you can benefit from it.
Got it. Okay. I think there you made a very important point. Like this is all available in the in the network. You can actually go
Yeah.
and verify that. And I think people will have like some of my friends have questions on this. So it's all in the public. So will anyone know how much Bitcoin I have if I buy it? And they're going to come back. The government is going to chase me to get something of like to get a share of it. So they have this question because it's all out there in the public. They have this concerns. So what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, really great question. So the way that I see it, you can buy Bitcoin from an exchange, and when you buy it from the exchange, there's going to be a record, right? Because you're buying it from someone who is connected to the government. They have your information. They're going to get your KYC or know your client information. So what they're going to do is they're going to ask you for your name, your address, your phone number, all that stuff, and they're going to connect whatever address you put your Bitcoin in. They're going to connect that with you,
Right.
right? And there's no way for you to get around that. So if you buy Bitcoin from an exchange and let's say the exchange gets hacked and somebody gets the transaction records, then they could know that you were the one who bought it. On the other hand, let's say, for example, if you buy non KYC, so what non KYC means is that if you go to an individual, let's say, for example, I ask you for Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to ask me for my KYC information. You're not going to ask me for this and that. Let's say you just want to sell some Bitcoin, you want to pay for your expenses, you need fiat. I'm going to give you fiat. You're going to send me Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and what I could essentially do is I don't have to tell you where that Bitcoin is going. I can put that there's actually new ways to do this. So let's say, for example, if you were to send your Bitcoin, if you were to send me Bitcoin and you sent it to Lightning,
Mm-hmm.
then you have no idea where that Bitcoin went because Lightning is a way to share UTXOs with multiple people. So the Bitcoin is basically um like a pool
Mm-hmm.
and it's shared between people. So there are thousands of people who are using Lightning right now, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If Bitcoin is on Lightning, maybe you can connect it to those thousands of people, but you can't pinpoint who exactly owns it. With the Bitcoin network, so I
Mm-hmm.
was showing you the website
Right.
mempool.space. With the Bitcoin network, there's no real there's nothing that really shows you who owns Bitcoin. So let me actually go back to that website. I think that was pretty key.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that shows you who owns Bitcoin. All it is an address. It's just a long string of numbers and letters.
Mm.
Nobody knows who owns this address. Unless, let's say, for example, if I were to go to an exchange and tell them, hey, I own this address, then they can say that, okay, you own it. This is tied to you. But if I don't tell anybody, let's say, for example, if you send Bitcoin to my address and I give you no information, let's say it's a digital transaction where
Mm.
I want to send you Bitcoin, there's no way to really connect that address to me unless I've declared it, for example, right?
Got it.
When you go to an exchange, you're basically declaring that this is my address. But then again, you can break that chain of Bitcoin by sending it to Lightning
Mm-hmm.
or Liquid, and then they can't track where your Bitcoin went.
Got it. So if I understand it right, basically Bitcoin is a fair system, but it also has privacy to it. So your transactions are private.
Yes, there's a level of privacy. Yes.
Got it.
Um, there's a level of privacy as long as people don't know which addresses you own. Like, let's say you tell people that this is my address, then they'll know. There's also, let's say, for example, if you have all of your Bitcoin on one address, and then you tell somebody, hey, um, if you need to send me Bitcoin, send it to this address. they can see how much Bitcoin you have in that address, and it's tied to you. There's also the other side of things. Let's say, for example, if you want to send Bitcoin to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you have all of your Bitcoin in one address. Let's say you have one whole Bitcoin in one address. You send them a partial, like you send them a little bit of that one Bitcoin. Let's say you send them 0.01 Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
They know that you have 0.99 Bitcoin left over, right? So there are ways for you to kind of ruin your privacy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are also ways to keep yourself very private. So what I would say is, in general,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to, try to pay somebody on Lightning, because if you pay them on Lightning, there's no real way to there's no real way to track transactions. On the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, with the Bitcoin base layer, so Lightning is like a layer on top
Right.
where it's almost like Visa, you can say, right?
Yeah.
So with Lightning, there aren't multiple copies. With the Bitcoin base layer, there are
Mm-hmm.
something like 24,000 copies of it all around the world. With Lightning, there's only a very small group of people maybe who hold that copy, the record of transactions. And as long as that record of transactions isn't made public, then you're pretty private.
Got it. Got it. So I want to switch the conversation to kind of slightly outside technology. So now that we've talked in detail about what Bitcoin is and how it actually works. So one question people always have is like, I'm talking more from developing countries because I speak to a lot of them, and like in Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So what they see is they are already financially aware. People are financially aware, and they want to invest for the future. They know their rupee is depreciating every day. So what they do is they go and invest in gold. They think gold is the most safe investment. If you ask any Indian, they're going to say gold is the most safe investment.
Yeah.
And now people are going to stocks and mutual funds, and they see good returns there. I mean, people get 10%, 15%. So why should they actually switch to this new technology and discard their like the one that they've held on forever?
So the way that I went to India earlier this year, and I noticed that there's a lot of banks there that have like gold-backed loans. So you can give them your gold, and they'll give you rupees, and then once you pay back the rupees, you can take your gold back, right? So there's a lot of banks that do that there. Not really that much who do that in Canada, in or North America in general.
Right.
But what I've noticed is that with gold, it's very hard to transact in. Let's say, for example, let's say you have $1 million worth of gold.
Mm-hmm.
It may not seem like much. Let's say, for example, it'll be a few bars, right? It may
Right.
not seem like much if you keep it in your house, but let's say you need to leave your house and you need to go on a plane and you want to take that gold with you. How are you going to take it with you? You can't, because it's going to get detected by metal detectors. They're going to pat you down. Where are you going to keep that gold? If you keep it in your suitcase, they're going to x-ray your suitcase. They're going to see that gold. They're going to confiscate it from you, right? But with Bitcoin, because it doesn't have a physical presence,
Mm-hmm.
nobody can take your Bitcoin. It's stored in your brain essentially. So
Right.
if you have Bitcoin, you can carry it around with you if you want to. You have the freedom to take it around if you want to. You have the freedom to do whatever you want with it. It's private.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you tell somebody you have it, they won't know. On the other hand, with gold,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody sees your gold, they can kill you and take it from you.
Right.
You can't really do that with Bitcoin.
You can't
If
really
somebody
hide
kills
it.
you, yeah, exactly. You can't hide your gold. You can hide your Bitcoin though. If somebody sees you on the street and they don't know you have Bitcoin, then how are they going to how are they going to even get to that point, right? They
Right.
might take your wallet, but
Mm-hmm.
if they see a gold bar in your hand, they can kill you and take your gold bar from you, but they
Right.
can't really do that with Bitcoin. I think this is one thing that a lot of people um, really don't value enough, because if you think about it, in war-torn countries. So go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a lot of examples on that. If you take
Yeah, of
any
course.
like a news article or a media on India, you'd see a lot of news coming out that people actually rob their house just for gold, and people
Yeah,
actually snatch the like gold jewelry. If people see wearing gold jewels on the road, because
yeah.
gold is like all-time high now, and just a single ounce of gold, not even an ounce, like 1/10 of ounce is also a lot of money in today's terms.
$350. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's an easy target. Like people
Yeah.
get robbed a lot. So yeah, what you make really makes sense. Like if people want to really save their money and save it properly and store it for long term, Bitcoin is a good alternate for gold.
So gold is great because historically it's been around for a very long time. It's done its job. The only thing is that gold came out in a time when there was no digital finance,
Right.
right? With With gold, you have a finite supply, but we don't really know how much gold exists. We have no idea. You have no idea how much gold is being taken out of the ground. If somebody finds a gold mine in their ground or in their backyard, they can start taking gold out and they can start selling it into the market. So you have no idea how much gold exists. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, we
Mm-hmm.
know exactly how much of it exists. We know exactly. If you have one Bitcoin, if you have 0.1 Bitcoin, you have 0.1 or 1 out of 21 million, and nobody can change that, right? And then a lot of people are worried that because it's infinitely divisible, it's infinite, right? The supply is infinite, and again, that's a math issue, right? That's an issue that people have with not understanding math,
Right.
right? That's like saying that, oh, if I have a pizza, I can split it into 16 billion slices and I can end world hunger, but that's not how it works, right?
Right.
0.000001 Bitcoin. If you can split that into another 1,000 units, that doesn't mean you have more Bitcoin. It just means that you can split it into smaller units, right? So let's say, for example, with YouTube, with
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, when I get my ad revenue, there are certain videos there are certain days where on certain videos I'm getting paid 0.0003 cents per video, right? Because it only got one view, for example, in that day, and the RPM and all that stuff. So that doesn't mean that there's infinite dollars. I
Right.
still want whole dollars. There's still not even a fixed amount of dollars, but because you can split it into smaller units, that doesn't mean that it's infinite. That's something that Bitcoin has, right? That's one of the most powerful things about Bitcoin. Splitting up your gold into smaller units is very, very difficult. If you want to
Yes.
pay for a coffee, let's say, for example, with gold, you
Mm-hmm.
can't give them a gold coin,
Right.
right? That
Right.
gold coin is going to be worth, like you said, $3,500 per ounce, right? If that gold coin is worth $3,500 per ounce, then how is the coffee shop going to give you change?
Right.
Right. So that's partly why we went to fiat. We went to fiat because gold was so difficult to transact with. It was so difficult to move around. We just trusted banks to hold our gold for us and then give us these IOUs that are basically backed by gold. But at some point
Mm-hmm.
in 1971, the US government basically screwed over everybody. Right. They had the Nixon shock. To your audience to look into this, the Nixon shock. Basically, what they did was they said that you can no longer exchange your dollars for gold. So it was it was almost like an elaborate scheme, right? That's how I see it. They got you to they got you to start accepting pieces of paper. They
Mm-hmm.
took your gold from you, and then at some point you can no longer have your gold back. Now you only get to keep that paper. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, it's very easy to transact with, so you don't have to worry about paper being used to back your Bitcoin, right? Or sorry,
Right.
paper backed by Bitcoin. You don't have to worry about that. You're going to be able to transact directly with your Bitcoin. So if I wanted to send you value today,
Mm-hmm.
I can send that to you. I don't have to send you, like I don't have to send. If I want to, okay. So which continent are you in? Are you in North America?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, for example, if we're in different countries, different states, different cities, if I wanted to send you gold, how do I send it to you?
Yeah. Let's say if I'm
I
in
can't.
London, you have to send it on a flight or maybe ship it somehow.
Yeah, and I have to trust people along the way, right? How do I know that when the gold gets to you, it's actually the gold that I sent you? What if they swap it?
Right.
What if they open the mail that I send you and then they swap it and then they give you pyrite? How do I know that? How can we prove that that's not the case? On the other hand, with Bitcoin, I can send you Bitcoin. If you're in, let's say you're in London, I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto, I can send you gold, I can send you Bitcoin and the transaction will be done within a few minutes.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
power of Bitcoin.
And I think this makes a lot of sense because I've seen banks, people recently, my friend got a SMS, like a message saying that $3,000 was credited. Like he got $3,000 from the bank for no reason. And they took it back.
Sweet.
That
Well,
was a some transactional problem with the bank.
yeah,
And from what I understand from what you're saying, that's not possible in Bitcoin. There's
no,
no way a
that's
wrong transaction is going to end up on you,
that's
right?
exactly it, right? So with the banking system, like I showed your audience that mempool website before. With the banking system, there's only one record of transactions, and that bank is the only one who has that record, right? And if they make mistakes, then it's on you to tell them, oh, you made a mistake, right? If they take your money out and you don't notice, then what's going to happen? You lose. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, if there's some kind of manipulative transaction,
Mm-hmm.
uh, nobody can move your Bitcoin on their own. If there is some kind of manipulative transaction, let's say, for example, more Bitcoin is created than what should be created, then there's going to be massive uproar. People are going to know that this is happening and they're going to call it out. It's not going to happen. It just won't.
And then they're going to fork a bit, fork, and they're going to do a hard fork, and then we are still safe. Like it's not like
Yes.
the end of the world.
I would say it's more likely that even the hard fork won't happen. The block will just be rejected.
Mm. So, okay, so it's already built into the code that you
Yes.
can't actually fake a transaction.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay,
if you try, let's say for example, if if the Coinbase reward is supposed to be 3.125 Bitcoin, if you give yourself 31 Bitcoin, that block is going to be rejected. Nobody's going to want to accept it.
got it. So I have a different question now. So most of my audience are in India. So what happens is in India, like now there is a crypto tax of 30%. It's a flat tax, and $1, and there is a 1% TDS if you actually buy crypto, be it Bitcoin, be it XRP, be it Ethereum, and then if you don't disclose those transactions, they're going to charge you 60%. So this
Well,
is one of the major reason. Like most of my audience, they only trade. They are very scared to buy it for long term because the government is so restrictive on this. So what's your suggestion to people who are listening to this? Like they understand it, they see the value, but they are threatened by the external forces.
I think that it would be smart to get non KYC Bitcoin, because that way, how are they gonna link your Bitcoin address to you? I think it's nearly impossible.
Right.
Um, I think it'd be very difficult for governments to. So governments can make you fearful, right, of whatever rules they have, and they can probably try to get you to cooperate with whatever rules they have, whatever tax rules they have, but they can't force you in the case of Bitcoin. They can't
Right.
force you because they don't really know how much Bitcoin you have. So, like I showed your audience the addresses before, there's no way to tie the address to a specific person. So, if you get Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
and let's say, for example, you go to another country, you get Bitcoin that's non KYC, and you put in your own address,
Mm-hmm.
how are they going to track that?
Right.
Unless you tell them.
Right.
If you don't tell them that, there's really no way for them to track it. I don't know what they would do, to be honest. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how they would track it, but you can't really track it. If you pay for Bitcoin in cash, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's no, like, let's say the other person doesn't report the transaction, they're probably not going to, then how's the transaction going to be
So
traced?
yeah, got it. So you're saying there is a non KYC option. You can either do a KYC or you can do a non KYC if you want to be discreet,
Yes.
and you can do a P2P. Like if you can also do a P2P, right? Like a
Yeah, that
person
would
to
be non
person.
KYC, yes.
Oh, that's a okay non KYC. Okay. Yeah, that sounds right. And the next question I had is on the same lines. Now, the government is trying all this to kind of reduce or slow down the adoption. But if you see the numbers, India is still standing like one of the top 10. If you see among
Yeah.
crypto adoption, in spite of all this, people are actually buying Bitcoin and unfortunately other coins also. So the general public sentiment, right? If you take any news channel or a newspaper or any social media, the thing that gets to them first is that Bitcoin is for scammers, it's for drug dealers, it's for criminals, and they take your money and they scam you. That's what people hear when they first hear about Bitcoin. So how do people actually get reliable information? Like what do you suggest to them? Should they do their own research? Should they trust the news media? Should they listen to their friends? Like what's your take on that?
I would say do your own research. One of the really great books that I would recommend reading is the Bitcoin Standard. Start with that, right? If you can start with that, go as deep as you want to, read other books as well, but start with the Bitcoin Standard and then come to your own conclusions, right? Confirm whatever you learn from other people. Let's say, for example, if they watch your channel, confirm it with other people. If they watch my channel, confirm it with other people. I never tell people to just trust me, right? That's one of the things, one of the most important things. Don't trust anybody in this space. Nobody's working for you. Everybody has their own incentives. So do your own research. Try to learn a little bit more on the side. You can go on Google and search for questions. You can find different books. Let's say there's probably 100 Bitcoin books out there now, right? All of those books, you can read every single one, and I think you'll get your answers. One of the greatest things, though, is that we've never met, right? We've
Yes.
never met.
Yep.
We've never met in person. We have nothing to do with each other. Like this is the first time we're having a conversation. But the greatest thing is that we've come to the same conclusion on this, and
Right.
that's because we did our own research. So what I recommend is do your own research, build your own conviction. You can't rely on other people to be convicted for you. You have to do the research yourself. You have to put in the time. If you don't put in the time, then you're not going to get it. You're not going
Uh-huh.
to want to own it. You're not going to be able to get through the volatility. So build your conviction. Understand the fact that there's only 21 million. There will never be more than 21 million. Nobody can change that. Nobody can stop that. Nobody can. make it so that there's going to be 50 million at some point or 100 million at some point. Because if they do, then the people who run the people who enforce the rules are not going to want to use that code. Let's say, for example, if somebody changes the code and then they update the supply to 42 million instead of 21 million,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are running the nodes are not going to want to run that software.
Right. Yeah. So another question people usually have on Bitcoin is, yes, I understand it's a great technology. Like you said, it's transparent. It has it has privacy to it, and you can't really fake transactions on it. It's all great, right? When they hear about it, when people go about their daily jobs, they go and work hard. They work hard, really hard to take care of their family and to really build a future for them, right? So
Absolutely.
when they look at it from a responsibility perspective, they look at the government. People always look at the governments and they
Yes.
think this government is going to do good. Okay, this guy is crazy. He's going to come back and do something.
Hmm.
The next person is going to do great. So they always kind of fall back on the government to do something. And if government approves it, they're doing it. The reason I bring is, like, if you see Bitcoin, the price kind of went up after the presidency change in US. And if you
Yes.
see in other markets, like if you see the BRICS countries, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they are planning for a different, and they're buying a lot of gold. If you see the news, I don't know if you can trust the numbers they give, but they're buying a lot of gold, and they're trying to create an alternate payment system. So if someone's from the Eastern Hemisphere, from like Southeast Asia or Middle East, how can they look at this from an economic standpoint, from a global economy standpoint? Why should they trust? Because when they see Bitcoin, they think it's because US wants to promote it, and maybe US will rug pull us.
Yeah, that's really important. So the way that I see it, in the past, we needed government issued currencies because we didn't have the kinds of digital platforms that we have today, right? If we didn't have the internet, who are we supposed to trust, right? So in the past, let's say, for example, if we didn't have government issued currencies, which currency are we going to use? Right. Let's say your neighbor, let's say you have some kind of deal with your neighbor, or you want to pay your grocery store. How are you going to transact with them? At that point, the government was basically like the referee, I would say, right? You
Mm-hmm.
trust the government to do the right thing. You trust the government to issue money. You use the money that they create because you know that there's an agreement, this social agreement that that money is real, right?
Right.
On the other hand, with Bitcoin, we don't need to do that anymore because with the internet, we don't need to ask for permission. We don't need to ask our government to make sure that the money is real. We don't need to use money that is created by governments to ensure that we're not getting scammed in a transaction. So with Bitcoin, you have this network where you can confirm those transactions yourself. You can confirm the validity of the transactions yourself. You can confirm the validity of the Bitcoin yourself. So, for example, I was showing the mempool website before. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
somebody wants to send you Bitcoin, and if it doesn't show up on that mempool website, then that transaction is not real.
Right.
Before, we needed governments to create money for us, and we didn't know whether or not that money was real unless, let's say, the bank confirmed it for us, right? The bank, so the governments don't create the money, the banks create the money, and then the governments basically enforce it, right? We trust our government to enforce the right thing. But people, like you said, how people just rely on whatever the government says. I think people need to understand that your government's not trying to help you. Your government's not in it to help you. Your government's in it to enrich themselves. You can see that, right? For example, Donald Trump, his family gained like $5 billion worth of wealth after he started creating all these crypto scams,
Right.
right? How do you know which one's a scam or which one isn't? That's the problem, right? The way that I see it, the only one you want to own is Bitcoin. You don't want to own anything else. And of course, do the research for yourself. Try to figure it out for yourself. There are going to be people telling you to buy Caspa. They're going to be telling you to buy Ethereum. They're going to be telling you to buy all these random cryptocurrencies, Litecoin, whatever they are. They're going to keep telling you to buy those. But the issue is that all of those coins are a dime a dozen, right? You can keep creating new ones. There's something like 11 million coins. And at the same time, Bitcoin is 58% of the market,
Right.
right? So if something is 58% of the market, that means that there's a reason for that. That means that there are people who are putting money into it. No matter what happens, even if the other coins keep growing, if there's more and more coins every single day, Bitcoin will continue to grow in adoption, in dominance, because it's the only one that truly gives you a form of money that nobody can control.
Right.
Everything else can be centrally controlled. Everything else has limited numbers of nodes. Everything else has limited number of records of transactions that are floating around. With Bitcoin, there can be an unlimited number of records of transactions, meaning it can't be manipulated.
Right. Right. That was all great points, actually. So, if anyone is listening to this and they really want to understand more about Bitcoin, I highly recommend like subscribing to Rajat Soni's channel. He posts almost daily. Like, I personally listen to his content, and you can listen to a lot of other people, or you can read a lot of books. But I think the one thing that stands out is you have to do your research, and you can't just be blind and deaf to what's happening around us, because in no time, like in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, it's going to change like so much, right? So
Yes.
any final thoughts, Rajat, like that you want to give to like to my audience who are based in India, and
So
they're yeah,
what I would say is start with even a small amount, right? You don't have to go all out. You don't have to go put 100% of your wealth into Bitcoin. Start with a small amount, right? Even if you can do $1 a day, $1 a month, $1 a week, whatever you can start with, just start, right? That's the key. Once you start, it gets rid of that initial fear, right? Because most people are thinking, oh, I'm going to lose all my money when I buy Bitcoin. Buy $1 worth and see what happens to it over the next year, next 2 years if you have to, right? At some point, you're going to realize that you're not losing your money. Your money is actually increasing. The amount of value that you have is actually increasing, and you're going to want to buy more, right? So that first step is buy at least a little bit. Once you buy a little bit, you'll notice that the value of it keeps going up, and you're going to want more. You're going to want to force yourself to buy more, and that's just how it is, right? So start with a little bit. Don't
hmm
just ignore it. It's not going away, right? That's the key. It's not going away. It's going to be here for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. In the next 30 years, you can either be thinking to yourself that, oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin in 2025. Or you can basically come back in time. You can go back in time to 2025 so that you can buy Bitcoin now. So if somebody asks you in 2055, if you could go back in 2025 and buy Bitcoin for $110,000, if you could go back in time and you could buy it, you can just tell them, I did that.
right,
I don't have to go back in time because I did it. Right.
right,
And I think that's the key here. Anybody can do that. Everybody can go and buy Bitcoin if they want to. Most people won't. 90% of the people watching this video probably won't. They'll continue to ignore it. But
right.
again, those people who do listen, the people who figure it out,
hmm
I think that they're going to do very well financially.
Right. I think that's a great point, because most people, like even when I see in my comments, like my videos comments, people say Bitcoin is at 100,000. I'm no way I'm going to buy that. I'm
Yeah,
not going to put my money on that. I'm going to rather buy something else that's $5 or $10. So anyone who's listening, like Rajat said, we are still early. The price is still not so high, and there is no price that is costly, that high enough for Bitcoin, because at some point it's going to be a medium of exchange, right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to go to 1 million. It's going to go to 10 million. It's going to go to 100 million. People can refer back to this video at that point, and they can see that, oh, these guys were telling the future, right? They were telling us what was going to happen in the future, and we didn't listen to them. Right? I highly recommend that you don't do that. Just buy some. Buy even a little bit. Even if you can buy, let's say you can buy $1,000 worth, do it. If you can buy $500 worth, do it. I think that's going to be one of the best decisions that most people make.
Right. Right. Perfect. All right. Thanks a lot, Raja. Thanks for joining us here today and explaining patiently and actually resolving a lot of questions I usually had. So thanks a lot. And by the way, if
Absolutely.
you want to follow Rajat, you can follow him on YouTube, X. He's on Instagram as well. And I highly recommend him, because he has his personal finance and he's worked in finance for 10 years. So he has a lot of that financial industry background, and he can see it from that lens.
I appreciate you having me on here, man. I really do.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rajat.